5 things you need to know about the chlorine in your swimming pool. Hi, Alex Stewart with Pool Training Academy, and in this video we want to talk about those 5 most important things that you need to keep in mind when it comes to the chlorine inside your swimming facility. Now please keep in mind that all the information contained in this video is going to be helpful not only for backyard pool users, but also swimming pool professionals who are either maybe running a pool route or who may be working at an aquatic facility. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing we need to cover is the various different readings that you're going to get from a test kit when it comes to interacting with the chlorine in your pool. The first reading that you're going to see, and arguably the most important, is going to be something called free available chlorine, also known as free chlorine. Now, free chlorine is what I like to call our good chlorine. I like to remember this by thinking, hey, free stuff is pretty good stuff. So free chlorine is good chlorine. What it means is it's free and available for disinfection. This is the stuff that floats around the swimming pool, and once it interacts with the contaminant, it will neutralize or kill that contaminant so it doesn't become a threat to anybody inside of that swimming pool. The second reading that we're going to be looking at is something called combined chlorine. Combined chlorine is created by free chlorine interacting with the contaminant. The way that this works is as that free chlorine is floating through the water, it finds those contaminants and it bonds itself or combines itself to that contaminant. In that process, it neutralizes or kills that contaminant and prevents it from either spreading disease or, if it's algae, from making your pool green. In that process, though, that free available chlorine basically gives up all of its killing or inactivating power. Therefore, we can look at combined chlorine as bad chlorine. This stuff takes up space, it can actually hinder our free chlorine from doing its job, and combined chlorine can also cause problems like eye irritation, skin irritation, and even lung irritation once it gases out into the air. The third reading that we're going to be looking at when it comes to our testing of our water is something called total chlorine. Now, total chlorine is basically the total amount of both free and combined chlorine inside your swimming pool. Now, this is important to know because there's a lot of test kits out there, both on the professional market as well as the backyard pool pro market, that basically only test for total chlorine and free chlorine. They don't test directly for combined chlorine. So what you're going to have to do is just a little bit of sleuthing in this situation. The way that you're going to figure out that combined chlorine is you're going to take your total chlorine minus your free chlorine, and whatever's left over is your combined chlorine. Now that we've talked about the various different readings that you're going to get from a swimming pool test kit, let's talk about the ideal ranges for each one of those readings. Now, the first one that we want to cover is free available chlorine. Now, the recommended standard out there is that we keep our free available chlorine levels between 3 and 5 parts per million. By keeping it at 3 to 5 parts per million, you are going to ensure that your pool stays clear, that it stays algae-free, and that you are preventing any sort of potential disease spread in the water. Now, for professional pool operators, remember, you need to be checking your local and your state health codes to see what your minimum and maximum allowable free available chlorine are in your area, and make sure that you're operating appropriately. Ideal combined chlorine reading is going to be a big old fat goose egg, 0. We don't want combined chlorine in our pool. But again, combined chlorine, as we know, is going to be kind of inevitable inside of our pools. So what we want to do is we want to keep that down as low as possible. General recommendation is once it gets between 0.1 parts per million and 0.4 parts per million, you want to lower those combined chlorine levels. And again, I go back to my commercial operators. Make sure you're checking your state and local maximums for your combined chlorines and keeping it below that so you stay open. Now I want to talk about something very interesting when it comes to the interaction of sunlight and your chlorine. Believe it or not, sunlight is extremely detrimental or harmful to your chlorine. UV rays will break down chlorine. In fact, the way that this tends to work is within the first hour of UV exposure, your chlorine is going to decrease by 50% simply because of that UV interaction. That's pretty significant. As a result of that, we need to make sure that we are keeping up on top of our chlorine inside of that pool. And that's what leads me to the fifth most important piece of the conversation when it comes to chlorine, and that is chlorine feed systems. Now, in this section, I'm not going to necessarily go into a description of each different type of chlorine feed system there are, the benefits, the downfalls, etc. Instead, I'm going to talk about the highest level understanding of these are important in general, not only for commercial operators, but for backyard pool owners as well. This is one of the most neglected pieces of the puzzle when it comes to either commercial operation or residential operation. Knowing that this sunlight is constantly degrading our chlorine and those contaminants that are interacting with our free available chlorine are also dissipating those levels, it only makes sense that we should have some sort of system in place to continually feed chlorine on demand and as necessary to make sure that we are still hitting our ideals of 3 to 5 parts per million of free available chlorine. Now again, thankfully you have a myriad of options that you can get out there, some that are way more affordable and some that are way more automated that provide a lot of peace of mind to where you can even check those systems when you're at home or when you're at your office that's 15 miles away from the property. So again, do your homework. Find which one works the best for you, but it's highly, highly recommended from Pool Training Academy that every swimming pool out there have some sort of automated feed system of some sort in place. And that's all we got when it comes to the 5 most important things when it comes to chlorine inside your swimming pool. If you like this video, please be sure to hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel because it's completely free. Also, be sure to ring the notification bell because that's going to update you whenever we put out a new video. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.